you.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Tom Jenkins from ETOA. We're going to wait a few seconds now, just as people join this webinar. It takes about a minute for people to come into the room, so to speak, and we will sit here and just allow this to happen. So as people come in, we have over 250, 270 people registered for this event, but I imagine, knowing the usual ratios of these things, that we'll probably have about 150 or 160 people, or over 100 to start off with, and people will join and watch later on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Tom Jenkins. I work at ETOA here in London. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by our new brand ambassador for Japan, our new high representative there, who's Hiroyuki Yoshida. Yoshida-san, it's absolutely delightful to have you. Welcome. We also have Katsumi Shimuzi from the Senior Vice President of Kuoni, based here in Europe. I believe you're in Paris at the moment. Is that correct? It is.
Yes, I'm in Paris.
Okay.
That's why my background is in Paris right now. Yes.
It's a live background. It's fantastic. Okay, and then we've got really representing the European end. We've got Marco De Rivo, who's the director in charge of hotel contracting at Mickey Travel, who I believe is in London. Are you in London, Marco? I'm not sure.
Yes, I am, Tom. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining me. I really do appreciate you spending some time. We're wanting to have this partly in preparation for our Asian marketplace, which is taking place next month. But I think the thing I would just like to emphasize is that the Japanese market is, outside of North America, the oldest and best established market for Europe in the world. Is by far the oldest best established market in Asia. Japanese visitors have been coming to Europe in volume since the early 60s. We categorize the Japan market as an old friend, and there's an old saying in Europe which says you cannot have new old friends, you can only have established ones, and Japan is in that unique position. Up until 2019, we were seeing roughly 2 million visitors a year from Japan. And these people were high spending individuals, and they were really of exceptional sophistication. I think I would say this is almost unique of any market. The Japanese client had in many cases, had a really unique enthusiasm for the products and the sites that they were going to. It's only the Japanese visitors that dress up as Beatrix Potter characters to visit Beatrix Potter. It is only the Japanese visitors who actually search for the authentic products of the destination. And it's genuinely heartening when you see them arrive and display that level of enthusiasm and sophistication. So not only are they there in quantity, but the impact they have is really benign. They're the best tourists in some ways. So the fact that we had 2 million in 2019, this fell to about 250,000 in 2020. But what people don't realize when they see that massive decline is that most of the volume in 2020 was in the first 3 months of 2020. And I believe in the remaining 9 months of 2020, we had about 4,000 visitors, tourist visitors from Japan in the last 9 months. And that level of almost total absence was felt throughout 2021 as well. So if the message is recovery in Japan, that's not a difficult feat to achieve, to beat 2021, because 2021 was so bad. And I'm sure we will be seeing an increase in visitors. There is one problem though, and that problem is the problem being created in Eastern Europe at the moment by President Putin. And I think what we might do just very quickly is just assess what the situation is on that front. Yoshida-san, is it possible just to give us a quick overview of what the perception of Europe is at the moment in Japan, given the crisis in Ukraine? You're on mute. Yoshida-san, you're on mute.
Okay.
No, you're not on mute. Good. All right.
Okay. First of all, I will introduce myself. And my name is Hiroyuki Yoshida, and recently appointed as ETOA's new brand ambassador for Japan, based in Tokyo. As a brand ambassador, I will be responsible to increase the membership and brand awareness throughout Japan. And tour operators will soon discover the tremendous value and support that ETOA network provides its member in the European marketplace. Prior to joining ETOA, I had a long-standing career at ANA Sales, which travel wholesaler in Japan. Working in various departments, but mainly managing the international side of the business. As we look to the future, I'm excited about the opportunities to expand. It was a customer base and footprint in Japan. With new strategic opportunities, I will bring my extensive travel trade experience that will uniquely position the organization for the next chapter of success. So I look forward to getting to know all of you in the meantime. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me directly. And then, okay, so now I think about, situation of a Japanese travel agent and the tourist now. Maybe Mr. Shimizu-san and Marco-san knows better than me, because I left the travel agent 1 year ago, so that's why. But I still get some news from my network anyway. So the most important things for the Japanese tourist now is changing of the foreign safety information. But unfortunately, most of the European countries still level 3. Level 3 means you can't go to travel. So this is one of the big, high, steady war for the Japanese tourist, and also Japanese travel agent as well. But most of the Japanese travel agent mean the wholesaler. Many staff who get used to in charge to the international tour program, but now they move to domestic tour program section now. So it's very difficult to keep the situation until this year. Maybe 2022 is we have a election in summertime. So election year is election of a parliament, member of parliament. Election year is nobody moves to the outside the country, unfortunately. So I hope, after the election means after summer, maybe beginning of autumn or winter, we will start to go abroad. And to 2023, maybe I think back to normal, but some other, we have difficulties also. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a 2022, 2023 is something like this.
Okay. Yoshida-san, you're being needlessly modest, but nobly modest, I would merely say. But that's very kind of you. That was a real insight. Shimizu-san, what is literally the current situation, you think? How are your colleagues in Japan viewing the situation in Europe now? And do you agree with Yoshida-san that we're really looking at effectively a start of a recovery that takes place towards the end of the year, and really next year is going to be important? Is that the right analysis?
Yeah, actually, as Yoshida-san said, that the most important things for the Japanese tourists is that everybody is looking at the regulated by the announcement, but information by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Japanese government is in a risk level of the foreign countries. And as Yoshida-san said, unfortunately, all European countries like now as a level 3. And it is avoid the going to the abroad, the countries. And unfortunately, just only level 2, it just only have New Zealand, Australia, and China and Korea. Maybe these all in countries in level 2. So this is and of course in before COVID, even in this the situation level 2, it is usually people don't go to these level 2 countries, actually, before COVID. But currently, all the Japanese travel agent is now thinking to prepare if this level lifted up to level 3 to level 2, maybe we are thinking to going to produce some of the package tour or something like that. But it depends on this regulation anyway. So we expected to the market coming back maybe from April, May, something gradually, and we thought that the actual recovery maybe from after summer. That's our expectation before this Ukraine issue happened. But unfortunately, after this Ukraine issue happened, there is another risk we have right now. And as you know, the Japanese market is the most sensitive of this kind of events. So as you know, so that's why of course anybody don't have any crystal ball, so we cannot tell that when it comes the market recover. But my expectation is also that maybe after summer, I think. That's my comment. Yes.
Okay, so and Marco, really, we're obviously that's the position from Paris. What's the position from London?
I completely agree with what has been said until now. I especially agree with the fact that we don't have a crystal ball, so it's very difficult to estimate when the market will resume because there are so many factors at the moment that will affect it. But yes, our estimation is in line with what has been discussed. The earliest we can expect a serious package to resume again from Japan is September, October. because obviously it requires preparation as well. Most agents are in total or partial hibernation at the moment. There is still a follow scheme going on in Japan, I believe is until June. So everybody's taking advantage of that. And while the level is not brought back to level 1 and they can start selling, obviously there is no any reason for them to increase their cost by running business as usual. So there's not much activity right now. And even if we want to start selling from September onwards, they need to start printing and the brochure and putting out in the market around April. So we're having a 3-4 month window there to be able to sell those packages and ensure that clients will be buying them. All of that obviously is affected, as we say, by what's happening in Ukraine. I can only agree with what has been said, that the Japanese market has always been very sensitive for war, terrorism, or any of these events. There is as well something interesting has been told to me that I didn't know, but obviously needs to be considered, is if this goes on for long and the airspace over Russia remain closed, there is a logistic problem there as well, because flight would be much longer. One of my colleague director has just flew back to Japan, and it took them 2 or 3 hours longer because they have to fly north of Russia. So there are not just the problem with people nervousness of traveling, but logistic problem as well, and how many airlines will be able to service Japan to Europe while these sanctions remain in place. It has to be seen.
And sorry, in addition to regarding to the airline pass extension, like due to the Ukrainian issue, that I think it is not only the time duration, but also it will reflect to the airfare. We are absolutely sure. That's why this is also I'm sorry to say, but this is one of the negative impact on the Japanese market.
You're right, and not only is it the airfare, but they're being impacted by the extended length of the journey, but also the cost of the fuel is going to be starting to affect the airfare as well. So we're trying to be optimistic here, but we have to be realistic at the same time. And we are facing a number of obstacles. The only thing to keep stressing is that we're coming back from a wasteland and nothing. And the question is, what is the business that is going to be there? And there will be business, I'm sure, at the end of the year. I'm one of those who say that Japan will be one of the origin markets leading Asia out of this depression. I certainly don't think China is going to be first out of the block when it comes to returning to Europe. So, but you're quite right. The current situation in Ukraine, both in terms of appearance and in terms of logistics and its impact on the wider world economy, is really, really tricky. And we're looking for a very bumpy 4 or 5 months before we get stable, I think. Okay, thank you very much for that. I ought to say to the audience, please, if you've got any questions for the panelists, there's a question and answer box, and we're most interested in hearing what you've got to say. We have over 150 people attending now, so if anyone's got a question they wish to pose, please do so. You've mentioned that, I think I'll just ask Yoshida-san, if I may, what is the normal booking pattern? And Mark has alluded to this. What is the normal booking pattern for Japanese coming to Europe? And what, how is that going to be affected by the current situation? Yes, it's a really simple question. When do they normally book for Europe, and how much will this change? Yoshida-san.
I think in these days, or just during 6 months and 1 year, I think booking for the travel abroad is nothing, because a travel agent doesn't accept any customer at all. So I think booking term, I think they don't change at all now. I think. But I am not sure they book the tour, but as I mentioned, travel safety information is still blue color, level 3. So it means they book, but travel agent cancel. So I think it's continuing the cancellation is maybe during last 6 months. So booking time is, I think they don't change, but they cannot go abroad. Mm-hmm. That is a situation of present situation, I think.
Yeah. That's, I mean, so long as there is a level 3 category restriction on people returning to Japan, people are not going to leave. And you're saying effectively that whilst that's there, people aren't even contemplating going abroad. We've got to wait for this restriction to be lifted for people to start planning. Is that the case? Did you agree with that, Shimizu-san? Is this what you're seeing as well?
Yes. I also think that, that the Japanese market is one of the long lead market for us. And usual booking pattern is more than 1 month before, almost 3 months before for the package towards booking, and some of them is 6 months before. So it's one of the long lead market, Japanese market. But I think this tendency will not change character, even after the COVID-19, something like that. But actually, that as Yoshida-san said, that Japanese people would like to, yes, go abroad and would like to travel, but due to some regulations and due to some announcement, they are now refrain to the booking anyway. But anyway, the booking pattern will not change. I don't think so.
It's good to know. Marco.
Yeah, it's most of the same. It's not the desire. The desire is there. People want to travel. Europe is still very much a destination on everybody's wishing list. Costs of traveling might have a little bit of an impact because we mentioned that earlier, but I understand that the economic situation in Japan is very stable and inflation is under control. So I expect that disposable income is still quite high. So maybe cost will not have a major impact. It's all about opening up and lowering the level to level 1. Then we can only see a resume of the market. Definitely, as soon as that is done, then the floodgates is open, and it's only a question of being ready to welcome them back.
Yeah. So I mean, it's absolutely critical for outbound tourism, and this is a thread that's gone through the first part of this discussion, is that Europe has got to be perceived as being a safe destination from a COVID point of view. If there's any danger of it being worse than Japan, they will not ease these restrictions, which I understand are very much imposed by the Japanese government. Someone raised the question, and the question answers who establishes these levels, and I believe it is the Japanese government that are doing so.
Maybe stress, Tom, that Europe is as safe as it can be. We travel in Europe, and the risks are minimal. You can catch COVID everywhere you are in Europe, but you can catch COVID in Japan or in China. So it's only a question of convincing each government that it is safe to travel. Europe is ready. We travel within Europe on a daily basis now, and there are safety in place in hotels, restaurants, and attraction, which make it safe to travel to Europe. So it's just a question of now opening the Japanese government to be confident enough to allow people to travel again. And it's not just Europe. The level 3, I understand, is almost worldwide. So it's just a question of allowing the Japanese clients to leave the country and come and experience tourism as they used to be.
Shimizu-san, do you agree with that? I mean, you're based here in Europe, so you've got a really clear perception of what it's like here.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with Marco. Yes, right. So everybody in Japan everybody knows that according to the news media, that they know that Europe is now recovering, and we are living in with COVID. But still, from Japan side, they try to manage the COVID-19 anyway. So they would like to they would like to be confident about the safe and health and safety anyway in the destination. So I think it is, and of course, as it is already said, that all the things this regulation has been decided by the Japanese government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we have to depend on that. Yes, that's the situation.
I mean, I have an opinion on this, but I'm more interested to hear what Yoshida-san says. Do you think, how fast do you think they're going to change these level restrictions, Yoshida-san?
I think it's a very difficult question, you know. Still, I worked at quarantine from at the airport before, just 6 months ago. That quarantine system is a very, very hard system for the foreigner people. At the time, there's 14 days isolation in somewhere in a home or in a hotel. But 1st of March, government changed the isolation system. Most of the country, most of the country came from just 3 days isolation, but still 3 days. So maybe foreigner people came to Japan, they surprised. They have already booster injection already, and also some documents they gave to the government, but we need the 3 days forced isolation. It's a very nonsense but that is a Japan system now. So I'm not sure that when the government will decide to change the color to the some level 1. Maybe takes time, I think.
Yeah. I think it's going to take time. I have to say, the interesting thing that's happened with COVID-19 is it's brought out the best in individual populations and in health services. I think globally, the human response to this has been remarkable. It has not brought out the best in governments anywhere in the world. And one of the big problems we have is that universally, governments are guided by opinion polls, and opinion polls in every country in the world tells them that the people there think that COVID is something that was brought in from outside. And the best response to COVID is to stop people coming in from outside. And I'm afraid I've seen this happening even within Europe. We saw European countries banning other European countries from coming in to their country. So this has placed a sort of huge xenophobic pressure on every government because it feels it's doing a popular move, and it's very difficult to shift. But the good news is that it's slowly shifting and it's slowly being lifted, and the damage this is being this is doing is being appreciated. So I've got great hope that things will change. On the basis that they will change, I just want to move on. Do you think, do you think there's going to be a possible shift between demand for FIT travelers or group travel? Is it, again, I'm asking you to use a crystal ball, which all three of you have said isn't working, but we'll try and get it to work a little bit. Marco, do you see any pattern in demand that there's a real interest in group travel, or is it going to be a shift to FIT?
We don't believe there's going to be a great shift from group to FIT, and we expect group to be smaller, yes. So where before you had a group of 40 people, it's more likely you're going to have a group of 20. So if anything, we're going to have more group, but smaller. But we don't expect a great shift toward FIT because, for example, in Mickey, one of our core clients is the 60+ generation, and that comes with barriers. Language barrier is the first one, and we still rely on tour leader which supply that support. And when it comes to FIT traveler, it's that's not going to happen. So for that reason, we do expect that there is still going to be demand for groups. Obviously, yes, there will be an increase in FIT. The digitalization makes it easier for them to travel. We have now there are applications out there, and Mickey has been part of those projects with tour guide application in different languages, so people can potentially walk around in a destination and use their mobile instead of a tour leader. But we are still nowhere near having a complete shift yet from group to FIT. We don't expect that. We expect mostly group to be smaller in order to guarantee social distancing and safety for the travel. People will be more nervous to travel or even sleep with somebody they don't know. So we expect that it's going to be, at least for the time being, it's going to be the trend going forward.
Okay, Yoshida-san, do you agree with Marco that there is going to be a slight, the group travel is still going to be there, but a slight shift towards smaller groups? Is that?
Yes.
No.
I think number of FIT tour, number of FIT tourists is maybe will increase, and the group tour is Marco-san said. I agree with Marco-san, but the group tour is still 10 people or 15 people we have, and but even the 10 people, 15 people is too much. So maybe just like relatives, or just like family, or just like friends, something 4 or 5 people is I think group is getting smaller like that. I think.
Susan, do you agree with this trend, or do you think? I mean, I'm an ex-tour operator. I find the idea of small groups inherently depressing, but maybe I'm being affected by my own prejudices in this area. Susan, do you agree with the general theory that smaller groups is what we're going to be seeing?
Yeah, I also think that little by little, yes, I definitely, there's not so much big change for the this group size from the past, finally. But what I can say is that small group and FIT is much earlier to recover than group tours. That's maybe where we can be sure. So as we said, that the market recovery may be after summer, something like that, but maybe that it will be started from FIT or a small group. We're almost sure, because I'm sorry to say that maybe we can get the 1,000 incentive tours suddenly after summer. We can't, and maybe not. So little by little. But and also I think from the point of view of package or ad hoc tours, I think the ad hoc tours is a little earlier to recover than package tour, because as we all said, that the package tours has so much regulation about this kind of travel risk level, something like that. So every travel company has to rely on that. But for these kind of ad hoc tours is by organized tours, it can be responsible by the organizer, not for the travel agency. That's why these kind of ad hoc tours and small group is small group ad hoc tours is, I think, first one to recover, I think.
Okay, we just got a question pop up on the chat line here. Marco, you might be able to answer it. How would you define a small group?
Anything above 10 people.
And below 10 people is not even a group. Okay, is that what you're saying?
It's difficult. So it depends. Supplier will not see it as a small group. They will see it as FIT. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult to have a clear definition there. Obviously, a family of 8 people traveling together, it is a small group effectively. But when you're then buying from supplier, they might not see it in that way. So rates, conditions, and everything that comes with it, it's more considered on an FIT than a group. A group as well have to be packaged as much as possible. So you just don't do one element. You have to have various element part of it. So it's a very blurred definition. Let's put it like that. It's very difficult to have a very clear cut there.
Now, I remember when I was at American Express, we used to have occasionally on group contracts, group size minimum 2, but I don't know how prevalent that is nowadays. We'd stretch anything to get a group in there. Yeah, I think the short answer is a group is what you think it is, to the question being raised. But we're imagining that in reality, a small group is 12 to 20 people. Beyond that, it becomes a group. Below that, it becomes a group of FITs. It's an interesting question. Are there any, I suppose it's a double question I'm going to throw at you. Do you think there are any, within Europe, there are any specific destinations that are going to be more attractive than others for any reason you can think of? It could be for reasons of the fact that they're always attractive, like London and Paris, or so hence the UK and France or Italy, or they're less attractive because people are worried about COVID. There are hundreds of reasons why people might be worried, but are there any destinations that you think are specifically are going to do specifically better than others? I think I'll just ask Shimizu-san, if I may, to start off with, and then we can just do a quick analysis of the beauty parade. If you were on a social app, which destinations you would be swiping?
Maybe one thing I can say is that maybe that due to this health and safety, because very keen on the Japanese market, especially. That's why the something like nature area, resort area, for example, Switzerland, mountain area, or Scandinavian countries, something like that, maybe become a little one of the can be popular destinations due to this COVID situation. But of course, still the Japanese people like very much city breaks like London and Paris. So I think there's not so much change about that. And one thing I would like to mention is that people doesn't want to and especially the travel agent company doesn't want to take a risk of the border control, border restriction, or after this COVID-19 regulation. So border control risk. So that's why what I want to say is that after this COVID-19, the much more mono-destination tour will increase. Japanese people, the market is like multi-destination countries. London, Rome, London, Paris, Barcelona, Italy, something like that. But I think we expect that after this COVID, that the much more mono-destination countries travel around one country, inside one country. For example, travel around in France, or travel around Italy, or travel around in Spain, it will increase. This is our expectation. Yes.
Yoshida-san, do you think this is going to be the case? Are people going to be concentrating on single destinations rather than multiple destinations?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Shimizu-san. And I think after the COVID-19, the key word is safe, health and safe, and health and nature. That is the three key words, I think. But I think they don't change dramatically to visit the country. But I see the domestic tour in Japan now, but completely changed. They go to some nature. They go to some seaside place, and they go to the health care places, because they don't visit the big city or some other famous city. I think the domestic tour dramatically changed, but the travel abroad is also maybe they change a little bit, but keyword is nature and health, because in Japan it's very popular now with health tourism. Health tourism is wellness tourism plus medical tourism. I think this tourism, health tourism, is a very popular, getting popular now in Japan. Maybe tourists want to find out somewhere in foreign countries like that, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Marco, do you think there are going to be winners and losers? Not winners and losers, this is not the right phrase. But can you see some destinations being more popular than others?
Yes, I can only echo what was already been said about the nature destinations such as Switzerland and Scandinavia. I can add as well that we think there will be an advantage for those countries where it's perceived that life has gone back to normal more quickly. That is the UK, for example. Everything is open for business, everything is under some form of normality, then obviously makes it attractive, because the last thing people want to do is queuing for hours and have to have a long waiting time. I want to add as well something very important about the mono destination. Yeah, that's very relevant, and it touch an open nerve here, something that we discuss at the ETOA AAC as well meetings, Tom, is about this lack of consistency on the approach by the different European countries have created. That is not a market decision. People are worried about moving from country to country because there are different regulations between different countries. So it's something that needs to be addressed at European level if we want these cross-country travel from long haul. There has to be more consistency between different nations on the approach of what is required or not required, etc., etc. Just before I pass it back to you, I want to as well highlight that we expect France will be quite popular because of the fact that it's in the spotlight in Japan, under the spotlight because of the Rugby World Cup, and the fact that they're going to host an Olympic obviously makes them a little bit, not that France needs to be put on the front page, but obviously it increased popularity of the destination. That's all for me now.
The subject of the how far the Olympic Games adds to the luster of a destination is a long and vexed question at ETOA, but we can maybe revive that at another occasion. Thank you very much, Marco. I suppose the next question I've got, pending any other questions coming through, are there any sectors in specific? I mean, you expecting young people to be traveling more readily than older people? Are you expecting to see, newly married couples going on honeymoon and photo expeditions? And what sector do you think is going to come back quickest? I suppose is the question. Shimizu-san, have you got any perception on this?
It is a little difficult to forecast an answer, but I think, as we already discussed, that this, especially this after this Ukraine issue, we expected something that tour fee and land cost and airline cost will rise up. We expected. So I'm sorry to say that maybe the low end, low price package tours cannot be executed sooner. So that's why the I think quickest market to recover is in a high-end market and luxurious market, something like that. I think it's one of the quickest to recover. But overall, after all this kind of situation is recovered and improved, I think when we go back to normal, that the sector of the Japanese market will not change so much, because I think elders, senior level, like over 60 years old, that this is a most biggest target for us and the overseas travel in Japanese market. So I think that will not change. But I think the earliest market quickly is to the luxurious market and high-end market, I think. Yes.
Yoshida-san, do you agree? Do you think it's the luxury end that's going to come back first?
Yes, I agreed. Most of aged people is getting fast come back, but younger people, I think, unfortunately, they don't want to spend their money for the travel, and also they don't want to spend the money to have a car. They don't buy any car at all. So I think they spend the money for the only like a smartphone or something, YouTube or something like this. So most important target is aged people at first, I think.
And they're the people with the money, because they haven't spent it all on a smartphone. This is a perfect perception. No, that's good. Marco, have you got an angle on this?
Yeah, no, I agree with Shimizu-san. We don't expect much changes from what it used to be, but definitely we cannot expect large student business coming and resuming anytime soon. Let's put it that way. So yes, it's going to be probably more on the higher level package tour and ad hoc tour to begin with, and then eventually slowly we'll resume to selling the normal packages and then going towards the low budget, but prices will be quite high, is inevitable. And let's remember as well that services in Europe are not ready for large package and large number of incoming from long haul. A lot of suppliers have not reopened yet. A lot of them will not reopen at all. There is a shortage of skills in all sectors, from hotels to restaurant to attraction. So it's going to be quite difficult. It has to be a slow restart. We cannot go back to what it used to be in less than a year. It will take some time, and it's actually better that it's going to be taking some time, because nobody's ready to the big number that we used to have. Nobody's ready to welcome 2 million clients immediately. It will take some time to do that.
I think you're right. I think what we're looking at is a gradual recovery. We were hoping against hope throughout 2020 and 2021 that the recovery would come like sun out from behind the cloud, and suddenly the sunshine will be there. But in reality, I think we're looking at a gradual phase, a bit like the dawn. It's going to be a slow process. I think we're getting questions coming in, and some of them are extraordinary. I have a lady here saying, look, at a recent ETOA event, some US tour operators mentioned that their clients would feel safer visiting an island destination and following the situation in Ukraine. Is this a view that would be shared by the Japanese? UK and Ireland has suggested that they feel safer going to UK and Ireland they are, after all, coming from a very large island themselves. So do you think there's going to be intra-island tourism? Shimuzu-san, what do you think of this? Not what do you think of the question? Is there an answer? Do you think that suddenly islands become more appealing destinations or not?
Sorry, but I don't think so, because Japan is also island country already itself. So that's why we know that how is an island country. So, but when we see the UK or other island countries, totally different way. We also think that it's one of the country of Europe anyway. So we don't distinguish UK as an island country from other European countries, continental countries. We don't think in that way. So I think there's not effect on that.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I hope you're hearing that, Visit Britain. Yoshida-san, do you agree with Shimizu-san? It's still Europe from the Japanese point of view.
Yeah, I agree completely, Shimizu-san. So the island, we have a lot of island in Asia country as well. So that's why it's not so attractive reason to go to island in Europe. Yeah.
Okay. Marco.
I'm probably the least qualified on this panel to answer that question. But no, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about that. I think, if anything, what we are discussing here is to avoid crowded places. That brings back to the nature kind of a destination, such as Switzerland and Scandinavia. So Ireland could be put there because it's big open spaces. So in that respect, yes, maybe that could be a little bit more attraction. But no, I haven't heard anything about Ireland being more safe or anything like that.
I really just I've got sort of sorry, what I'm just edging towards. Is there anything in specific that you think, if you are a supplier out there and you've never handled Japanese clients before, is there anything you need to know that Japanese clients require in general? Is there anything specific that they need at the moment? And Marco, I'm going to start with you because you're the person dealing with suppliers directly. So
yeah,
I'd be interested to hear your perception on this.
There's nothing new there. Obviously, hygiene will be very important. That goes without saying, but I expect that every single supplier we work with has stepped up to the challenge and is now fully in line with the regulation. There are very strict regulation across all of Europe anyway. So I don't expect that would be an issue in itself. When it comes specifically to Japanese client, we go back to what we've been discussing for years. It's high level of service, first and foremost, good quality food, good quality of service. When it comes to the hotel, it's again the old, we must have a bathtub and separate beds. But I think everybody knows that in these days and ages. We're not saying anything new. So no, there is not any specific advice. I don't think in that regard we have changed very much. Perhaps we need to be a bit more careful on certain like arrival time, try to stagger it a little bit more, not to have too many people all in the same place. I think is going to be important, but it's not just the Japanese. I think every market will expect that. So in that respect, I don't think there's anything new to say.
No. Yoshida-san, do you think there's anything that there are any specific requirements for the Japanese clients at the moment, or would you agree with Marco? It's the same thing. I mean, the same thing is not a small requirement, I hasten to add, but it's there's nothing.
I think we don't change anything at all. I think it's same as before. Just clean, hygiene, and then good quality. Maybe that's all I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you concur with that?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Me?
Shimizu-san, would you?
Yes, yeah, totally agree. Because I was also going to say that exactly the same thing as Marco said, that hygiene is one of the, especially after the COVID-19, I think this is one of the most important point which Japanese travelers is concentrated on it. And also high quality service is, in other words, hospitality is in a human services. These kind of, Japan, luckily Japan is very famous for the hospitality. When we welcome the Olympic Games, something like that, on the World Cup, and it was one world famous right now. So unfortunately, Japanese people ask for the same level of the hospitality and service when we go to the overseas travel. So this is one of the, but if all the suppliers can supply of that kind of the high level services and hospitality and human touch services, I think Japanese people, I'm sure that they will be satisfied, and they will become a repeater anyway. Yes.
I think it's a very good point you're making. I think that it's an old point that destinations learn from their visitors. In Europe, I suppose that Europe learned from having British visitors just by building hotels. This is quite a long time ago, but they weren't there before. And from the Americans, we learned the importance of having ensuite bathrooms, which were by no means universal prior to the 1960s and 70s. And from the Japanese, I think those hotels that have engaged with the Japanese market know the importance of customer service. We once had a presentation once by, I think it was from Jata, who wanted to point out to the suppliers, in America, they have a phrase saying, the client is king. In Japan, this isn't true. The client is God. And you've got to understand this. And this is something that Europeans are slowly getting used to, but we're learning from the Japanese, and it's an important point. I suppose that we're getting very close towards the end of our allotted time. Is there anything that destinations can do to turn the situation around? Because I mean, we know this market. Look, there are a few things we know. We know the Ukraine situation, ghastly though it is at the moment, occupying all our minds as it is at the moment. That will pass. How it will pass, when it will pass, we don't know, but it will pass. And when it passes, the market will return. Is there anything we can do is there anything a destination can do? Is there anything the European Union should do to try and increase business from Japan? Can I ask Yoshida-san to start off with?
I think unfortunately that the current situation is very unforeseeable right now. So, and to be difficult to predict for future. So I think the best thing is wait and see. But I think one thing I would like to say to all of the attendees, that especially for the suppliers, to welcome the Japanese group, I would like to ask to prepare for the business coming back. You know, as Marco said before, that unfortunately, we understand that all the suppliers has lost so many staff members during this COVID-19, and there are newcomers right now, so they need time to learn, I think. So I would like to ask all of you that to prepare for the business coming back, that to submit to supply the operation excellency at that time. So that's one. Well, not only for suppliers, but we also in the same situation. So we in the land operators also has to prepare for the market coming back.
Marco.
Absolutely, it's a key point. We understand that a lot of suppliers have to adapt, and things have changed, but many of them build up a legacy over the years and loyalty from the Japanese clients by adapting their service to their requirement. And obviously, they might have lost a lot of the staff that have that knowledge and now they have to kind of rebuild it. So it's going to be a challenge. Definitely, it's going to be a challenge for everyone, for supplier to be ready and for us to support them towards that goal. So it is a very key point. I don't have much to add to that. From a European Union point of view, we are going back to what I said earlier. If there is no consistency between the different European countries on the approach they are having in welcoming back clients and tourism, it's always going to make it more difficult for us to sell Europe as a destination. We are going to end up just selling every single destination for its own value, and that's not ideal. That would be a limitation to what we can sell.
Going backwards. Yoshida-san, with the person in Japan, is there anything that they should be doing you can think of?
Yes, I watched the YouTube, which you had a webinar last week, Asian demand. I watched that YouTube, and then I thought Japan's market so behind at this moment. They're talking about the Singapore market and then the Chinese market. They are now getting back to normal, but Japan is still we consider about travel safety information. So maybe so behind now, I think. So we have to do something with JATA to the government in a quite near future. Otherwise, Japan market is behind all Asian countries. I'm worrying about it.
Mm.
Well, here am I trying to, no, I think you're quite right to raise these points. And I think there is a huge difference in Japan, because in North America, for instance, all the clients that had booked for 2020, and 2020 was supposed to be a boom year, and this was for every market. But all those people who were expecting to travel in 2020 have were given credit vouchers, which they're now spending on product, we hope, in 22, and we're expecting to see a lot of that money being spent in 2022. In Japan, of course, everyone got a full refund, as is their right in Japan. And this raises, as one of the questions raised, the impact of the Japanese travel law. I don't think we've got time to discuss what is a whole new area of concern and interest. I think we need to defer that for another webinar, which we shall indeed have. And there will be other webinars on, other people have been asking what other markets in Asia are going to be generating business. We'll be covering that in another webinar shortly, all leading up to the East and Southeast Asia workshop that we're having online on April the 28th. So there are going to be many more events like this. But first of all, I want to thank the audience for paying attention and being here and asking so many pertinent questions. I hope we've been able to answer them in the nature of the discussion. But chiefly, I really want to thank the three panelists who've joined me here today. I really do appreciate that you're busy people and you've given over an hour of your time to inform people from the real depth of your knowledge and breadth of your experience. So I'm indebted to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
We'll leave you, say goodbye, and say goodbye to everybody on the webinar. Bye-bye. Oh, by the way, this is being recorded and will be available on our website. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.